Two of the best suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta are Marietta and Alpharetta, and very often people are trying to decide which one of these two is the right one for them. So let's talk about these two cities and which one might be right for you. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living, and we put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs. When it comes to these two suburbs, these are like the most popular of all of the suburbs, and very often people are looking for those excellent schools and the excellent community and the family-friendly environment, and you can find all of these things in Marietta and Alpharetta. So it's hard to decide which one is the right one. So let's kind of break it down category by category and see how it applies to your situation. I've got a few different categories to talk about: schools, home prices, what the communities are like, the commute, the demographics, the style of homes, the HOAs, the downtown area, and we'll kind of decide which one of the two cities is better according to that category. And we'll start with schools. In general, when we look at Marietta, Marietta is a much larger city than Alpharetta, at least double the size. And if you are looking on Google Maps and you just like click on the Marietta and it kind of like opens up the outline of how big Marietta is, that is not accurate. Google is not accurate about the size of Marietta. Marietta is much larger than that outline when you tap on the Marietta thing on the Google Maps. That's just the city limits, but the unincorporated parts of Marietta are 2 to 3 times that size. And so when we're looking at public schools, there's off the top of my head, I would say about 5 or 6 public high schools in Marietta. And some of those are rated poorly and some of those are rated excellent, whereas Alpharetta is a much smaller city and there may be 2, maybe 3 high schools and they're all excellent. They're all a 9 or 10 out of 10. And so two very different situations. The best high schools in Marietta are in East Cobb. And so if this is like the biggest factor for you, that you want to be in the best high school district and in Marietta, then East Cobb is the right place for you, and they are equivalent. 10 out of 10 high schools in East Cobb, 10 out of 10 in Alpharetta. And so for that reason, they're kind of the same. But again, not all of the high schools in Marietta are a 10 out of 10, especially if you move to the west part or the south part of Marietta. These high schools still have a bit of catching up to do. They're still trying to improve. When it comes to community, you kind of find very similar styles of the community and the family-friendly atmosphere in Marietta and in Alpharetta. Both of these are suburban areas, and so you have a lot of people who, families, a lot of kids, school age, who are working and then they commute to a nearby employer, either in those cities or in Alpharetta or a nearby suburb. And so the two are very similar, but Marietta has a much wider range of kinds of people. Maybe median income, I would say, is a wider range in Marietta because you have much lower cost of living in Marietta and the higher, but in Alpharetta, the cost of living is kind of the same throughout the entire city. So because of that, we're going to see that this is a common theme when we compare the two, that there's a wider range of styles of homes, the wider range of the average household income is in Marietta because it's a much larger city. But overall, these are both very family-friendly environments, family-friendly cities. Marietta is in Cobb County and Alpharetta is in Fulton County, and both of these counties highly value that kind of family-friendly atmosphere. The safety, the low crime areas, the public schools, these are all very important to both Cobb and Fulton County. Another difference is going to be the downtown areas. If you're thinking about moving to either one of these two suburbs, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. Even if you just have a question about what it's like to live here, I'm more than happy to help. But the downtown part of Marietta is much older than the downtown part of Alpharetta. You see that red brick building all over downtown Marietta, and it has a lot of roots in the Civil War, and in fact, the railroad goes through downtown Marietta. So because of that, it kind of was established a lot long ago, whereas the railroad does not go through Alpharetta. And we kind of see this in many suburbs of Metro Atlanta, where these cities that are not on the railroad line tend to be a bit newer, feel a bit more modern because they weren't established back when the railroad was used for like all of the things. And so the railroad still goes through Marietta, but because it was established so long ago, it still has that historic feel. And both of these are in an area where you could walk to all of the shops and restaurants if you lived nearby. If you lived within a mile of downtown Marietta or Alpharetta, you absolutely would have that easy walkability to all of the things. But if you prefer a more modern feeling kind of downtown area, then Alpharetta would be much better. And it's not only the downtown area, but it's also the houses and even like the shopping and restaurants all around the city. They all tend to feel a bit more newer, a bit more modern in Alpharetta because that city is not quite as old. So the age of the homes is newer in Alpharetta. The buildings, the commercial areas are all a bit newer in Alpharetta. Marietta has tons of homes from like the 50s and 60s and 70s. And so there's a large part of the city that has those older style homes, and many of them have been remodeled and they have that kind of new feel where it's like super wide open and that bright wood flooring with the white walls and the wood beams in the ceiling. This is a common kind of theme that we see in many of the homes that have been remodeled in Marietta, whereas Alpharetta has newer homes from the early 2000s or even 2020s. And so there's a lot more new construction in Alpharetta, but one thing that this very much affects is the price of the homes. So here's a quick rundown of the price differences in the homes in Marietta and Alpharetta. In the last 90 days in all of Alpharetta, the average sold price for a home has been about $725,000. This goes for the whole city, and you can find homes lower than that, maybe as low as about $600,000. Anything lower than $600,000 in Alpharetta, you're starting to get into that part of homes that are like they need some work, they need some TLC or a lot of TLC, but 600 is kind of, I would say, the bottom of move-in ready homes in Alpharetta. When it comes to Marietta, the average sold price in the last 90 days is $450,000. But the thing about Marietta, again, and because it's so much of a bigger city, the lower priced homes are in the south part of Marietta, where the average sold price is probably about $400 or $375. Then we have West Cobb, where the average sold price is about $400 or $425. And in East Cobb, this is where the better schools are. The average sold price in East Cobb is going to be closer to about $500,000. So we're not just comparing $725 to $425 or $450. We're comparing the best schools in Alpharetta to the best schools in Marietta. In that case, it's $725 versus $500,000. Another big difference is the amount of demand for buyers in these areas. So if you're buying a home, you want to know like how much competition is there going to be? Am I going to be in a multiple offer situation? Am I going to have to overbid on homes? Well, in Alpharetta, the average amount of days that a home is on the market before going under contract is about 6 or 7 days during the spring. Whereas in Marietta, the average amount of time for a listing before it goes under contract is about 8 or 9 days. So again, very similar, but less competition in Marietta, more competition in Alpharetta. More people want to live in Alpharetta. Also, there's less homes for sale in Alpharetta. So because there's less homes for sale, there are more people bidding on the same homes. So you tend to see less buyer competition in Marietta. But ultimately, which one of these two cities you move to really depends on how you see the city. Like when you come and you visit and you say, oh, I kind of like the way that this city feels, or the vibe of the crowd. This is really one of the biggest factors, is coming to downtown Alpharetta or to downtown Marietta to really get a good feel for the city. And of course, this can be difficult if you're from another state or even another country. So I've actually made 2 videos where I went on a tour of the downtown areas, went on a vlogging tour and kind of show you around the different downtown parts of these 2 cities. To check out the vlog tour of Marietta, you can find it here, and the vlog tour of Alpharetta is here. I'll see you in the next video.